Shock Monkey Radio is entertainment for adults, by adults, and the views and opinions expressed here do not reflect upon the sponsors or FXBG Public Radio. For additional information, please refer to the United States Bill of Rights. Stand warned. You ever wonder if you'd stop driving if you ever became filthy rich? I often think about this whenever I see like a red carpet or award shows and you see all these filthy rich people stepping out of limousines and all their Hollywood finery. I think about people who grew up wealthy and never learned to drive because they never needed to. And I feel nothing but pity for those people. Why deny yourself the pleasure of driving? I know it might be tough in the city. It's probably not fun to own and operate a car in a more metropolitan area where most rich people live. I suppose I'm just lucky that I was never more than a couple of minutes drive away from a winding, under-trafficked country roads where you can just enjoy the drive. And if I were ever stupid rich, I would never stop driving unless I had to move to a city. Then I'd have at least 2 armed bodyguards with me at all times, and I could never jam out alone in my car in the city. But if I were super rich, I would like to be super rich out in the country. I would have several nice Camaros or Trans Ams or Firebirds from the late 70s and early 80s, and I would have a racetrack built on my property so I could really open it up from time to time. I would be more like Adam Carolla and less like Jay Leno, by which I mean loving the driving more than the car itself. I would rent raceways. Yes, I would walk straight up to the counter and say, "Was this raceway featured in Gran Turismo 5? Yes? Huh? Yeah? Okay, how much to rent the track for the day? Huh? NASCAR today? What's NASCAR today? What's that?" Hello and welcome to Shock Monkey Radio. I am your host, the Madman. I'd like to remind you that I have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. There you can become a patron. I would appreciate it very much if you did that. If you'd rather just send me a one-time payment on Cash App, use the hashtag shockmonkeyradio to send me money through Cash App that way. I also have social media accounts where I don't cough on them and cough during it or anything. At Denalitsaw, which is the word wasteland spelled backwards on Twitter. Shock Monkey Radio Redux on Facebook, and at SLRobbins13 on Instagram. So got some bad news today. It's going to bum us out in the beginning of the news, but we're gonna cheer it up till that point. EK is going to have to run out real quick, and so I may have to finish the show on my own, but that's okay. I'm also technically savvy. Technical. I know kind of how this place runs. Kind of. So welcome to Shock Monkey Radio. I also have books available for digital download on Amazon.com. Search for the author Scott L. Robbins with 2 T's and 2 B's. Or you can check the link in the description below where I'll have links to those books. So we had big trouble in the little suburbs a couple days ago. So a guy in my neighborhood flashed a gun at a driver who was passing by. The driver panicked and floored it, running off the road, driving through a neighbor's lawn, and dropping a bumper before skidding out in a driveway about 6 houses down. And the cops came down. They asked some questions. They asked for any Ring camera footage. Police love that kind of stuff. They love watching videos, apparently. And I heard nothing further about it, nothing about an arrest or anything. But I still have a few things to say about this random incident. First of all, don't flash guns. It's not cool, and it only proves that you're more interested in flexing with the gun and therefore not mature enough to carry one. Guns are tools, and you only need the tool when you're about to use it. Also, you can't flash guns at these suburban white people. When white people panic, it can get all silly and messy. For example, the panicked driver did more damage than a kid who flashed a gun. But people have flashed guns at me, and I just laugh at them and go on with my day. But I have experience with firearms and conflict, but not everyone has that luxury, I guess. I certainly don't panic and floor the gas in a residential area and going off-road. That definitely let the guy know who flashed his gun that it rattled you. And you should never give someone like that the satisfaction. Then you skid out in a driveway and bail and run into your friend's house, probably saying something crazy like, "There's a guy with a gun out there. I ran for my life." You're in a car, dude. A car is a weapon too. Your 110-pound wife knows that. Don't get me wrong. I am not happy to see criminal behavior like that showing up in my neighborhood, and I'm quite concerned about the increase in crime over the last few years. But up until this incident, I had not factored in the awkward, inexperienced white panic factor. If things ever got serious, like a riot or civil war or zombie apocalypse, there would be scores of panicking white people, all kinds of in the way or causing a ruckus for no reason. Those idiots are going to make a mess of things and create more chaos and just end up getting themselves and probably someone else killed. Think about it. These are the same people who know so little about guns that they panic at the sight of one. And in a zombie-type situation, they are all using firearms for the first time in their lives. So they'd have accidental discharge or otherwise not know how or when to use them properly. There is nothing more off-putting than the panicking, inexperienced white people of the suburbs. I'm somewhat more scared of that now than possible gang activity in my neighborhood. It's now the unpredictable quantity. I'm enjoying White Claws today. Enjoying's a stretch, though. They're not great. They're girl drinks. I don't even know what acai is, but I'm drinking it. Wildberry acai smash. I had this conversation with EK about, it says 100 calories on it. And it's like, yeah, most beers are 100 calories. You know? It's like when Michelob Ultra came out. It's like, ooh, 3 less. Anyway, speaking of cops, I was joking around with my niece about the body cams. So these cops came around the houses nearby and asked people what they saw. Only one had a body cam, though. But because of body cams, cops can take your statement now in video form, which is really cool. So I joked about how you could come out after an event like this in the neighborhood. You just got out of bed and you give a statement to the cops on their body cams. And the whole time, your hair's all sticking up everywhere. You got crust around your eyes. Your breath is kicking. And the next thing you know, your statement could become a very important piece of evidence in a criminal case. And then there's teams of lawyers, judges, jurors, all watching your statement over and over again. And they're all making fun of your hair and eye boogers. Imagine that. Imagine that the media got very interested in the case, and the clip of your statement is running every hour on the news. Sources say that jurors have been watching this statement repeatedly. Then everyone in the world is making fun of your hair and eye boogers. It becomes the most popular Halloween costume that year. And the Led Zeppelin Icarus shirt that you, like the one you were wearing, with replicated stains and all, are selling on eBay for $300. Imagine that. The same could be said about Ring cameras. Your Ring camera footage could become a key piece of evidence. And the eyes of the world start judging your property, and the comment section would fill up with things like, those stepping stones don't match the driveway. The first step is not level. Looks like dry rot to me. Oh, termite problem there in the railing. How many Amazon packages do these people order? That dead tree needs to come down. Here's the my tree removal company's website. I just think it's hilarious how video has changed our world and all the good, bad, and hilarious things it has brought into our lives. Because silly things happen to humans every day. The internet is full of hilarious clips taken from people's Ring cameras. And the more humans live on Earth, the more hilarity is happening, and more cameras mean more of that hilarity being captured for posterity. Excuse me. So I watched Overboard again recently. It's that classic Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn flick. They did a lot of movies together, so the official reviews of that movie reflect that fact. But I think it's held up over the years. If you don't know about the film, Kurt Russell plays a handyman named Dean, who gets stiffed on some work by Joanna Staten, but she falls overboard. Roll credits. She loses her memory and he basically kidnaps her and forces her to work for him as his quote-unquote wife until she pays off the debt. It's that classic 1980s criminal morality. Well, he kidnapped and enslaved her, but only until she paid off what he was owed. Felonious premises aside, the film is actually quite good at showing the importance of a complete family and the value of the various roles within that family. When Annie, Goldie Hawn, comes into his life, his house is a mess and his kids are out of control. Slowly but surely, she gains proficiency in keeping house, feeding the kids, and most importantly, calling out Dean when he's in the wrong. She accurately points out all the problems within the family and holds Dean to account for things like the oldest son constantly jacking it. The youngest kid can't read, and that's an issue. She falls perfectly into the role of a good, loving wife, which in turn made Dean a better person. Dean and his friend Billy had been talking about designing a mini golf course for years, but thanks to Annie's involvement, they stopped talking about it and started being about it. And that's the ideal when it comes to relationships between men and women. We complement each other. We make each other better. We make each other more than the sum of our parts. Dean was a single dad in the beginning of this movie, and his house and family were in disarray. And Joanna didn't want children at the beginning of the movie. And she was a bitch with no perspective about how most people live. And obviously, the main moral of the story is how a spoiled woman learned empathy by being forced to live in a lower middle class family. But the second moral of the story is the fact that Dean and Annie made a good couple. And there's no denying the love story of it all. I'm man enough to admit it. Despite all the laws that Dean broke, there's romance to it all. Men and women make each other better. And this movie shows that the traditional roles of the family are the ideal way for people to live and to raise children. Those prophet boys were in desperate need of a woman's influence at the beginning of the film. And that's why that principal lady showed up to Dean's house. The cult classic felonious love story Overboard. 10 of 13 stars. I loved it when you glued Joey to the toilet seat. Also, how come not one person, every time somebody said, he only talks like Pee Wee Herman, talking about the kid who always talked about like Pee Wee Herman, not one person in the entire film said, really? That sounds nothing like Pee Wee Herman. And then you could have a running gag, in the family with everyone trying to perfect a perfect Pee Wee Herman, ha ha, and that could be a running gag. Because the kid's not doing it right. That kid sounds nothing like Pee Wee Herman. Yep, we're going right into the news worth knowing. EK's busy. Might be a short one today, and that's fine. We do it how I like. So we'll get into the news. Normally you'd see a stinger. Normally you'd see a stinger right there. So here's the bad news, and I have a hard time finding it and use my usual places, not on Fox News. So I'm going to read the show notes from Steven Crowder's show this morning, because it's the only show that talked about it. And so yes, I mean, am I copying Steven Crowder's work? Yeah, okay. But nobody else is really talking about this, and this is the only website I can find with any information on it. And the good thing about louderwithcrowder.com is that they post their sources. So let's talk about this new information from the Uvalde shooting. On Tuesday, the 21st, Colonel Steve McGraw, the Texas Director of Public Safety, called the police chief's response at Uvalde an abject failure before a Texas Senate Special Committee hearing. And they have a link on their site for the source. All right, then the gunman was already locked in the classroom, and Chief Arredondo claimed he had tried dozens of keys from the hallway. Now, no, he wasn't. No, it wasn't. In fact, the door cannot lock from the inside. All right. Then they said the police didn't hesitate, and this is Chief Arredondo again. And this is a quote, not a single responding officer ever hesitated, even for a moment, to put themselves in risk to save the children. But the new information now is instead of attempting to breach, a tactically superior force with 19 officers waited in the hallway on the chain of command on the command of Chief Arredondo. And they got 3 different sources on that. I guess I should have used Daily Mail, Texas Tribune, or the Independent for the article. But even if the door had been locked, officers had a Halligan crowbar with them, and that they could use to break it open. So, I mean, they really dropped the ball. These cops in Uvalde, they really dropped the ball when it comes to this. And just like Crowder said, it's simply cowardice. It's simply cowardice on the part of these cops, and then they were arresting people trying to go in. I mean, that was another one of the things they talked about on Louder with Crowder, is that this. Let me find it. A slain teacher's husband tried to save her. During testimony on the Uvalde shooting on Tuesday, Colonel Steve McGregor, the Texas Director of Public Safety, discussed how one man was disarmed and detained while trying to save his wife. She had called him after she had shot, begged him for help. He tried to go in there, and the cops disarmed and arrested him. And it's awful. It's awful, the news that's coming out of Uvalde, how they dropped the ball on this. And then they want to talk about gun control and stuff like that. It's like, these are the people that we're only going to allow to be armed. These Keystone cops, these cowards. Now I understand there's got to be cops there that were on that situation, didn't want to disobey orders and stuff like that, and probably eating themselves alive right now because of their failures. I'm sure there's good cops there in Uvalde somewhere. But I mean, we can't allow that kind of inaction to not be prosecuted. These cops who made these calls, especially Arredondo, especially him, because he was the one that said, well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. It's like, we can't let those civilians in. I don't care if he's armed. So it's just really upsetting what's going on with the news about Uvalde and about how the failures of the police in that regard. You know me, I'm a back to blue kind of guy. I do like to support the police, but I support them because their job is to protect us. That if I have a child in a school somewhere and the shooter comes in, that they would go after him, minimize the amount of damage. But no, they sat, what was it, like an hour and 14 minutes with that guy in there still shooting people, and they're waiting. Very sad news, very upsetting. So let's go on to this next set of upsetting news. Senate votes to advance bipartisan gun control legislation. The U.S. Senate voted yesterday, to advance a new bipartisan gun control bill in a procedural move that saw 14 Republicans support firearm restrictions. The 64-34 vote was a crucial step in potentially passing the legislation, signaling that it may eclipse a 60-vote threshold needed to break the filibuster in the Senate when the bill comes up for an official vote. The bill would need the backing of 10 Republicans and all state Democrats to avoid a filibuster. If the Senate breaks a filibuster, the bill could be put up for a final passage vote. From there, the House would have to vote on the legislation before it can land on President Biden's desk, in case you didn't know how bills become law. The 80-page bill was released Tuesday evening and included expanded background checks for gun buyers under 21. Provides grants for states that implement their own red flag laws and offer additional funding for both school safety measures and mental health services. The measure also creates penalties for straw purchases of firearms, requires more gun sellers to register as a federally licensed firearm dealer, and closes the so-called boyfriend loophole by prohibiting gun access for people convicted of domestic abuse against an intimate partner. The bill follows a bipartisan framework from earlier this month that 10 Republican senators have already signed on to. The framework on gun control measures was the basis of Tuesday's legislation. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell from Kentucky and Senator John Cornyn, from Texas, the bill's lead GOP negotiator, both voted in favor of the legislation proceeding. They're both Republicans. I support the bill text that Senator Cornyn and our colleagues have produced, McConnell said in a statement Tuesday evening. The other 12 Senate Republicans to approve on proposals and advancements are Senators, of course, they're listing all the bad guys, Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, Joni Ernst of Iowa, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Todd Young of Indiana, Tom Tillis, and Richard Burr of North Carolina, Susan Collins of Maine, Mitt Romney of Utah, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Rob Portman of Ohio, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, and Roy Blunt of Missouri. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from New York said on the Senate floor that the chamber will move to final passage as soon as possible, that he expects the bill to pass by the end of the week. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said in a statement, after the Senate passes the bill, the House will swiftly bring it to the floor so we can send it to President Biden's desk. Joe Biden is expected to sign the legislation if it passes the Senate and the House, obviously. Yeah, so, a lot of these laws are already in place. The background checks, you got to ask yourself, is like, how extensive are the background checks? How have they been, And then there's the idea of red flag laws, which is really scary. It's like, hey, that guy calls himself the madman or talks about crazy stuff on his podcast. I think we should red flag that guy. Next thing I know, I can't own a firearm because somebody out there who watches my show is like, that guy's scary. And it's like, really? Am I that scary? Especially on the internet. It's not like going to come find you. Who has the time? So hopefully the Republicans in the Senate, they cannot get 10 of them to go for it. So hopefully it won't pass. Because, they always try to push something like this after a horrible event like Uvalde, and it's not even like this bill is even going to work to fix the problem in Uvalde. It's like, maybe we should prosecute police who fail to, to serve and protect, and yeah, maybe more money for mental health services is better. I'm talking about this with even liberal people. I talk about this concept is these mental health services here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We have the Rappahannock Community Services Board, and that's all, those kinds of things are constantly underfunded for what they need to accomplish. And so, it's I'm always on board when it comes to, getting more mental health for people, because number one, it's done wonders for me, and it could have done wonders for one of these horrible people who go out and choose the wrong series of actions. That's a preventative measure, if you ask me. But the practical measure means you need to have cops that do their job, go into harm's way for our sake. That's your job. That's exactly what you're paid for. Anyway, let's talk about something else. Cotton and Banks spearhead bill allowing adults to sue doctors who transition them as minors. So this is first on Fox, exclusive to Fox. So Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas and Representative Jim Banks from Indiana are introducing legislation today in Congress that would allow adults to sue doctors who perform gender transition procedures on them up to 30 years after they turn 18. Up to 30 years after they turn 18. Wow. Under the Protecting Minors from Medical Malpractice Act, patients or their legal guardians would be able to seek declaratory or injunctive relief against such practitioners, as well as compensatory damages and attorney's fees. The provisions would apply only to procedures performed after the bill becomes law. Whew. Lawyer talks hard. The proposed law also clarifies that federal law cannot be construed to force medical practitioners to offer such procedures and prohibit federal health funds from going to states that force doctors to perform them. to define a gender transition procedure. The bill draws on the definitions laid out in a March fact sheet from the Department of Health and Human Services, which claim gender-affirming care includes social affirmation at any age, puberty blockers during puberty, and a cross-sex hormone therapy starting in early adolescence. Irreversible surgery to both breasts or genitalia is typically used in adulthood or a case-by-case basis in adolescence, according to the agency. Holy cow. The bill also specifically defines biological sex as the genetic classification of an individual as male or female as reflected in the organization of the body such individual or reproductive role or capacity, such as through sex chromosomes, naturally occurring sex hormones, and internal and external genitalia present at birth, without regard for the subjective sense of identity of the individual. Holy cow. Do you really need that many words to explain what the difference between male and female is? Oh my God. They're trying to cover their bases, I guess. They're trying to, shore up that strike zone so they can't squeak one by them. Oh man. Anyway, the bill makes an exception for medical procedures related to chromosome abnormalities. That's why, because of chromosome abnormalities. Cotton told Fox News Digital in a statement that gender transition procedures aren't safe or appropriate for children. He went on to say, unfortunately, radical doctors in the United States perform dangerous, experimental, and even sterilizing gender transition procedures on young kids who cannot even provide informed consent. Cotton continued, our bill allows children to grow up to regret who grow up to regret these procedures to sue for damages. Any doctor who performs these irresponsible procedures on kids should pay. Banks, who serves as chairman of the Republican Study Committee, told Fox News Digital that an official guidance from Biden administration recommends irreversible and life-altering surgery for minors too young to apply for a learner's permit. I think we got a thunderstorm coming through. I don't know if you can hear it on the mic, but I think it's either that or somebody's moving around garbage cans. I don't know. Some rumbling going on in the background. So, I think this is a good thing. Because I don't think that these surgeries are good for the people who get them. First of all, if you think that if you're a man and you think you're a woman, I think you have a mental illness. It's like being schizophrenic, or it's like being, like, for me, like depression. Depression was my problem, and if some psychiatrist said to me, is like, oh yeah, everyone conspires against you, everyone hates you, you're right about all these things, you have every right to be sad, so I'm going to encourage your suicidal behavior. I think that's the best thing for you, is to pursue that method. And that's obviously the wrong thing to do. And encouraging these people to get this kind of surgery or these kinds of treatments, it's the wrong thing to do. From a medical standpoint, first, do no harm. You're doing harm by telling somebody they're a girl when they're actually a boy. That's harmful. All right. And secondly, it destroys these kids and young adults. It destroys their possibility of sexual intimacy with somebody. Even if, a lot of people have weird fetishes these days. I get it. But I mean, at the same time, if you do the research of how these procedures go and what it means for the people who get it, you can understand that this is, it's very, very cruel and unusual to remove somebody's possibility of intimacy with a partner. Gay or straight, doesn't matter to me. It's like you become like, it's almost like a eunuch. You become one of those people in Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? It's like you can't really have any real, truly intimate relationship because your sexual organs really facilitate that process. The closest, people I've had, I've had girlfriends that I've not had sex with. I don't feel as close with those girls that I didn't have sex with. The girls I did have sex with, when we broke up, broke my heart. Because there was an intimacy there. but you're taking it away from these kids. In about 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a ton of kids who are going to regret that anyone encouraged them with this crazy type of treatment and surgery. 5 to 10 years, they're going to be a bunch of pissed off people who who have never had an orgasm. Never had one. It's insane. It's insane. All right, let's go on to this next story. NYPD officer assaulted by homeless man, grabbing for cop's gun after Adams orders solo subway patrols. My God. So a New York Police Department officer was assaulted on the first full day of New York City Mayor Eric Adams' new solo subway patrol plan when a homeless man allegedly grabbed for the cop's gun during a struggle. The plan, also supported by the NYPD Commissioner Keishant Sewell and MTA Chairman Jano Lieber, was rolled out on Tuesday despite objections from New York City's largest police union for officer safety. Yeah, no kidding. The NYPD said a transit officer patrolling alone in the southbound 3 platform on Pennsylvania Avenue train station in Brooklyn was attacked at approximately 6:45 p.m. Tuesday by a 24-year-old homeless suspect, later identified as Alex Ehrman. The officer spotted Ehrman smoking a cigarette on the platform and asked him to put it out. The homeless man then threw himself down the stairs. When the officer approached him to help, Ehrman proceeded in an attempt dragging the officer down the rest of the staircase, police said. A struggle ensued, and NYPD said Ehrman made several attempts to grab the officer's gun. After several minutes, the officer managed to subdue Ehrman and take him into custody. Golly. The officer is transported to local hospital for treatment and is in stable condition. Following the ordeal, New York City's Police's Benevolent Association released a statement saying the union president, Pat Lynch, and Mayor Adams have spoken regarding this evening's assault on a transit police officer performing a solo patrol. And given what happened, the mayor indicated that that the deployment plan will be modified so that there are 2 police officers on every train patrol. However, in a statement on its own, NYPD said the department was continuing with the solo patrol concept by spreading officers out on posts with a caveat that they will be within sight of one another. This will increase visibility of police officers looking out for the riding public while at the same time looking out for each other, the statement added, according to Fox 5 New York. This comes as transit crime in New York City has spiked more than 54% compared to the same time last year, according to the most recent NYPD statistics. And Adams has previously said the city's post-pandemic recovery relies heavily on commuters feeling safe enough to use public transit. Despite recent praise from the mayor, department, and state, Lynch has already criticized the solo officer patrol plan last week before its launch, saying in a statement that solo transit patrols were previously abandoned because they make it harder for cops to protect strap hangers and ourselves. They're even less effective now that the criminals know that there are no consequences for fighting cops and resisting arrest, the union president said, saying that the new plan will only accelerate the exodus of officers leaving the department or putting in for retirement. Absolutely. Quote, "We can't fix the NYPD staffing crisis by spreading our overstretched resources even thinner," he added. Ehrman, who has a history of arrests related to offensive behavior towards police, is facing several new charges over Tuesday's incident, including resisting arrest and assaulting an officer. New York Post reported that Ehrman was arrested and charged with obstruction of governmental administration in February for allegedly spitting in an officer's eye in an ambulance. Oh, this guy seems like a real teddy bear. May 11th, Ehrman was charged with several offenses, including second-degree assault and resisting arrest, after allegedly lunging at an officer and striking him several times in the shoulder with a closed fist. The same day, he was also charged with third-degree assault in connection with the domestic incident. Jeez Louise. For both arrests, he was granted non-monetary release, also known as cashless bail, on May 16th. Hours before Ehrman's most recent run-in with police unfolded on Tuesday, Adams touted the solo patrol plan at the Brooklyn press conference. For many years, we had a version of what cops called single patrol. I did it as a police officer. Adams, once a transit cop himself, said, "I wouldn't have anyone to do a job that I wouldn't do." As part of the plan, the mayor said officers would patrol alone only at certain subway stations and not patrol alone at night. Solo patrols won't be assigned to the larger stations of Fulton Street in Brooklyn or 34th Street in Midtown, Adams said. We're looking at how to better utilize our resources, he said, according to NY Daily News. We're looking at the stations, and if we find one where a single patrol is doable, we'll do that. Anyway. Yeah, if I were a New York cop, I would not want to be out there on the streets alone. You know? And, you know, the police union's right. The police union is right because it's, you know, these cops are going to be quicker to, like, quit, move on to something else. And with police experience, you could easily become like a, you know, bodyguard or, you know, security guy. Same thing with like ex-military guys. I know tons of guys for the ex-military who ended up working in security. You know? And so it just makes the people who want to be good cops get out quicker because they're like, you know, you're tying our hands with all this yellow tape. You know? And so, you know, and I wouldn't want to be, you know, when I was in New York and riding the subways, I had another sailor with me. I did not want to ride the subway alone. I would not go down there alone, especially in my dress blues. You know what I'm saying? So because I mean, people will mistake you for a cop, you know? And so, I mean, I can't believe that they would do this. New York, the crime in New York is just crazy. I don't know what they're thinking. All right, let's go on these last two news stories. Try to cheer ourselves up before we get out of here. And I got to shut everything down if electrical storm doesn't do it first. All right, so Florida woman shoots and kills man who broke into her bedroom, police say. A Florida woman shot and killed a man after he broke into her bedroom while she was asleep and attacked her on Tuesday morning, authorities said. The woman called 911 around 8:45 a.m. from inside her Clearwater home in the 1600 block of Flagler Drive as she struggled against the intruder. Clearwater Police Chief Dan Slaughter told reporters. Clearwater, I think that's near Tampa. Slaughter said that the dispatcher heard a scuffle before the woman was able to grab her lawfully purchased gun and fire at least one shot, Fox 13 Tampa reported. She was able to use the gun to defend herself and fired one shot, which resulted in the death of that intruder, Slaughter said, adding that the initial investigation appears to show a case of self-defense. The suspect, identified as 26-year-old Justin William Wright, died at the scene. The victim suffered injuries consistent with a struggle and was not believed to require hospitalization, police said. Investigators have yet to determine how Wright entered the home. No further details are immediately available. So it's just one of those things where, you know, hey, that's why the Second Amendment exists. It's like the old saying, Samuel Colt made them equal. You know, it's one thing to put it on paper, but Samuel Colt made them equal. It's like, you know, even, you know, if you're a tiny guy and, you know, it can protect, a gun can make all the difference between a tiny guy. You know, if you're 5'4", a dude who's 5'4", and you have a pistol, you know, the 6'3" guy is not going to, you know, isn't going to try to shove you around. If you're a woman and a big man breaks into your house, hey, you're on an even playing field now that you have a gun. All right, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. It's a shame someone died, but you know, the jackass shouldn't be breaking into people's houses and attacking women. You know. I don't know. I saw this this video of a guy who came in and tried to hold up a post office, and the guy, one of the guys who was in there, was also carrying, and just boom, put a couple shots in him. He was like, "Hey, you know, play stupid games, win stupid prizes." You know, when you know, guns are a big deal. That's why, you know, don't flash them at people. Anyway, let's go on to this next story. I think I like this tropical pomelo smash better. All right. Last story for the day. Cocaine dealer identified thanks to Conor McGregor mural and sentenced to 29 years for drug trafficking. A man who was arrested after investigators identified him thanks to a UFC mural in his home has been sentenced to nearly 30 years in prison, UK authorities said. Ryan Palin, who is 36, was sentenced Friday to 29 years behind bars for conspiracy to supply Class A and B drugs in an international drug trafficking ring, Merseyside police said. Ooh, the White Claw. Ooh, that's awful aftertaste. These charges included conspiracy to supply cocaine and amphetamine. Palin was initially arrested in December last year when police executed a warrant at his home in Wirral, W-I-R-R-A-L, Wirral, after they found an image of a mural of UFC superstar Conor McGregor on an encrypted phone used to sell drugs. You putting it together yet? Investigators were combing through devices that used mobile encryption service, commonly known as EncroChat, when they noticed the unusual detail. Officers said that the mural was painted on a wall located in Palin's residence. Palin was subsequently arrested, charged, and sentenced. This is a quote. "We welcome today's verdict and sentence. The Merseyside Detective Sergeant Graham Cahoe. Forgive me. Now that Ryan Palin is behind bars, he can no longer peddle huge amounts of drugs and misery on the streets of Merseyside and beyond." The police who executed the warrant also found luxury clothing valued at over $166,000 and high-end watches valued at over $157,500, which they seized. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Palin chose to go to trial. Fortunately, the jury saw through his lies, and Palin can now consider the consequences of his actions while he serves a significant time in jail, Cahoe added. He continued, "Palin's substantial sentence should serve as a stark warning to anyone involved in this criminality that there are serious consequences. We simply won't let people live off the profits of criminality while our law-abiding communities work hard to make an honest living. We will find you and bring you to justice." Merseyside police said they will continue to search for drug-related activities in their local community and urge people to come forward with any information that could assist them. You know, if you're a cocaine dealer, you shouldn't get like a custom mural in your house and have all your drug dealing friends come by and it's like, "Hey, check this out." It's like, "Oh, let me get a picture of that." You know, you shouldn't get like some like very specific thing you could, be fine. You know, it's like, 'cause now he's going to have to sit in jail for years and years and years thinking about how he screwed up by getting that mural. Oh, that poor guy. Well, that's too bad. But that's going to be the end of our show. I want to remind you again that I have a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio and become a patron. I would appreciate that very much. I also have a Cash App. If you could use hashtag shockmonkeyradio, all one word, you can send me money that way. I would appreciate that very much as well. Help keep me in business, help me get some more White Claws. Buy me a beer, send me some money that way. I also have social media at Denaltsaw on Twitter, which is the word wasteland backwards, Shock Monkey Radio Redux on Facebook, and at SLRobbins13 on Instagram. I also have books available for digital download on Amazon.com. Search for the author Scott L. Robbins with 2 T's and 2 B's. I also will include links in the description below. If you can't find it right now, check last week's video. There'll be links in there. So I'll get to it tomorrow, posting the links and everything and the timestamps and all that. I know you guys love it. So I really appreciate you guys watching, supporting me. I appreciate it. Like, share, and subscribe. If you cannot contribute financially, I would understand. Just like, share, and subscribe. Share my show with your friends. Say, "Hey, I went to school with that guy. Oh, I was in the Navy with that guy." And he's kind of funny. So this is the end of the show. This has been Shock Monkey Radio. I'm the Madman, and I love you.